really reflects Lulu as a support champion, even possibly another Vayne, but obviously it's a little bit too early to pick that out, because if they would have picked Vayne a little bit earlier, then the blue team, there would be probably less of a question as to whether or not to pick Nasus, who has a debilitating slow, basically slowing both your movement speed and attack speed to such low levels. It's very, very strong against hyper carries like Vayne, so I think if that pick is locked in, the purple team might want to stray a little bit farther away from Vayne in these next couple picks that they're about to do. Another possible champ for the blue team is Ryze, who is quite commonly known as the late game machine gun caster for AP champions because he's got extremely low cooldowns. His passive, I believe, helps lower the rest of his cooldowns as well, and on top of that, he's got a lot of tankiness as well as mana, so he'll be able to keep cranking out more and more damage as the course of the fight goes on.
An excellent point there. Now, Nasus being picked up as well. It'll be interesting to see what lane he goes to. Top lane is a little bit rough for Nasus because he does have to compensate for that kind of weak early game that he has. It's why he's typically put in the jungle to compensate for that. That Wither coming out is going to do great against no matter any AD carry they pick because, talking is my strong suit. And come that late game, the combination of Nasus being able to get into those back lines, really Avast, really... with Nasus being able to dive straight into those back lines with his ultimate, it's not only going to make him a terror to any AD carry, it's also going to make him a terror for anybody that has to deal with the immense health and tankiness coming out on him. So both Nasus and Ryze kind of working for this late game oriented comp that the blue team is building that could be absolutely devastating. The thing is that they have to drag it out to that point. They have to be able to get to that late game to make this team comp work, whereas the purple team really has to focus on winning those early engagements. If they win in the laning phase and win in the very early stages of the team fights, they should really be able to come out on top in this particular matchup.
On the other hand, purple team, they are building for a little bit of early game. As we know, Caitlyn Lulu is definitely one of the strongest early game bot lanes in the game, having so much poke. Lulu is basically known for poke. Glitter Lance does quite a bit of damage on base, and it also delivers, I believe, an 80% slow, which really helps your AD carry follow up with a little bit more damage, especially if that AD carry is Kayn, whose auto attacks longer range than any other AD carry besides a late game Tristana. So once again, emphasizing that early game power, and not only that, but the Piltover Peacemaker early game doing a ton of damage if she can land that, which, obviously it's easier to land a Piltover Peacemaker if Lulu just gets the Glitter Lance off directly before that. So they are looking to put on some aggression, and we'll have to see what their last champ is going to be. But on the blue team, it looks like they have gone for Varus as well as Jarvan. So as you said before, going for a very heavy team fight oriented comp, they have champs like Varus, who's got an AoE ultimate, AoE shutdown ultimate. If the person he hits with his ultimate stays around the rest of his team, then it's an AoE snare. On top of that, we have Jarvan, whose Cataclysm basically makes it so that the enemy champions can't escape from that person who has the AoE snare on them. And on top of that, as you said, Thresh, great team fighter, as well as the machine gun caster Ryze, as well as Nasus.
I'm scared for the blue team right now. That last pick is going to be devastating. Okay, so this is actually one of my favorite comps in the entire game, and the purple team has got a great core for this. They have got Lulu, Hecarim, and Orianna. Here's essentially what happens. Hecarim gets Orianna's ball put on him, and then Lulu speeds him up. He dives right into the fight, manages to get a good fear off on, let's say, 3 to 4 people. Orianna pops her ultimate, drags everybody in, and then Lulu comes in with the ultimate and manages to knock everybody up. There's a lot of crowd control there, and it's this very devastating AoE comp that, a lot of people don't really run. Orianna's a very high skill cap champion, and she works amazingly well with Hecarim. I love running that combination, but it's even worse with Lulu, who's going to be able to provide even more disruption to that entire team fight. If Caitlyn is getting to the point where she can essentially, she gets a little bit fed, she's well farmed for the game, she's going to be doing a lot of damage coming in there as well with that disorientation. But more importantly than that is Kha'Zix, who's going to be able to dive right into the back line with that and be able to isolate any target he wants, which is really going to be Varus as long as they're able to lock him up in that combination. Kha'Zix is a really strong strong assassination champion, so he's going to be able to isolate and take out Varus without much of an issue here. So this is something really exciting to see. I am totally pumped up for these team fights.
As with the last game, we saw a lot of early aggression from the purple team, and especially in the bot lane, and I think that's going to be a familiar thing that we're going to see in the bot lane of this game for the purple team, which really helps them out because, as you said, the blue team really wants to wait until more of the late game where Nasus can get his Q farmed up. Ryze can get a bunch of his items that help him be tanky as well as do a lot of damage with mana as well. So a lot of late game scaling champs for the blue team. The purple team, obviously, as we said, their bot lane is very, very early game. Kha'Zix is one of those champs. If he does get a couple of early kills, then he can snowball extremely easily, and as you said, just run into the back line and completely burst down someone like Varus. And Orianna is a champ that sort of works pretty well throughout the entire game. I would definitely say her strengths lie in mid to late game, but she's not a bad early gamer either. She can really outplay, especially someone like Ryze, who early game doesn't really have too much mobility. He can't really do all that much to escape Orianna's balls if she has great control with those. But it looks like the purple team, they also have a little bit of late game in Hecarim. He's a great late game champion who can really just stay in the middle of a fight, keep disrupting, and he's extremely tanky as well as getting some spell vamp from his W, so that's going to help him out quite a bit.
Yeah, Hecarim, despite the nerfs that he endured, he's still a really, really good late scaling jungler, but more so with this team comp, both teams are going to be kind of oriented towards that late game and team fight phase. The one thing that does lend to the purple team is that they should be getting into that team fight phase before the blue team is able to completely hit the late game, when Ryze is really tanky, where Nasus has got a lot of farm on his Q from going into that jungle, you know, where Jarvan's super tanky and Varus is able to pump out a lot of damage. So I would say that it's all going to come down to probably the first and second team fights are really going to be the deciding factor on this game if the laning phase is fairly even. So that's going to have to be something we see coming into this game. It's going to be really interesting just because, you know, like you said, you've got a lot of interesting lane matchups here. You've got Caitlyn and Lulu going up against a Thresh and Varus, both great at doing damage, both offer a lot of crowd control. It's really going to come down to the ganks in that bot lane, but while we're getting in the loading screen, I'm totally not paying attention to you right now, Chinese Pride. While we're in the loading screen, ladies and gentlemen, this is LunetTheHerald casting here today with AzarakiDragon. Feel free to follow us on Twitter at TowerDiveTV. Check out our website, TowerDive.tv. The website is currently up and in open beta right now, including a forum system and soon to come a bunch of champion guides for you guys, which you can all make requests on, and we'll get some really, really high-skilled players to come in and do those for you. As well, you can find the brackets to the tournament there, and of course, anything we're streaming will also go up on there. So now, as we get into this game, we can see the Skin Wars coming out. Tribal Ryze, Pharaoh, Nasus, Blight Crystal Varus, and Commando Jarvan. Unfortunately, Thresh with no skin makes the blue team Team 4 skin, and it looks like we've got Bittersweet Lulu, Officer Caitlyn, and Sown Chaos Orianna coming out for the part of the red team.
Yeah, I have to ask though, what is the biggest distinction between a closed beta website and an open beta website? Like, what is the big difference there?
Closed beta websites aren't supposed to be public to people. Like, they're in secret
Doesn't
and generally only go online for like a small section of individuals to test out.
But that might also be alpha as well.
Yeah. Same thing. Don't you get on my butt about this.
I mean, I would have just said beta. the site is in beta.
Whatever. I'm going to seriously, I'm gonna have to find you, Azaraki, and I'm gonna have to kick you right in the shin. That is all I've got for you. I've got no other words for you, mister. Let's tear down everything Lunette says in between a cast to make fun of her. I see how it is. But more so than anything, this red team's totally gotta win. They've got Bittersweet Lulu, you know, my favorite skin, coming out on my favorite champion. The supportal's gotta bring it home. The supportal.
Well, I would have to agree. I would like to see the purple team win, not only because of the name on the Varus, but because I do think that their comp, I like their comp better than the blue team. The blue team, I think, is just putting a little bit too much faith in the late game, and if you don't have the team play ability to bring it to the late game, then it's really going to be hard for them to win. And as we've seen before, the purple team have some great early game. They've put on a lot of pressure behind towers. They've pulled off tower dives. They've done so much early game aggression to get that lead in the last game before the enemy team could even hit the mid game phase where they can team fight. It's really going to be hard for the blue team to get to the late game team fight that they really want to get to when faced with a team like this. Let's see if they can play a little bit better than the last team in the early game.
And yeah, to the people who are asking right now, Hecarim sent me a message. He said that he had to reset his internet in the loading screen or go for a pause as soon as they loaded in because he's having a little bit of net troubles. So that's all that is. Your stream isn't frozen. We are actually loading into the game. He's just having a couple of net issues right now. So nothing to be concerned about. Your eyes do not deceive you as he loads in on his calculator, according to Chinese Pride. That's almost as good as loading in on a pokey potato.
We'll have to see what type of calculator he's running, whether it's a TI-84 or a TI, what is it, 52, I think
really?
it is. Something
really,
like
Azaraki?
that. I'm going there.
Could you be any more stereotypically Asian right now? Like, really? What is wrong with you?
My friends have started making those Asian jokes at me all the time. They've stopped making sense quite a while ago. It'll be something completely random, and it would be, well, of course you like spaghetti. You're Asian. And I'm not quite sure where they get those, but it's pretty funny, and I like to laugh at it as well.
Oh man, I swear, Azaraki, you always get in a cast and manage to make me laugh, but it looks like we are in game. The pause has gone down as we kind of expected. So let's go ahead and break down these comps, what we're seeing right now. Now, something interesting I want to point out is that they're going for a Jarvan top lane, and that's not something that we normally see in the current meta. We'd like to see Jarvan as a jungler right now, but putting him in that top lane and offering the kind of crowd control that we want to see coming out from the blue team isn't a bad idea, but what are your thoughts about this?
Jarvan top, when I saw the picks and bans first come out, I really thought it would be Nasus top and Jarvan jungle, because that is really what the standard is, as you've said. However, looking at the matchup, we have Kha'Zix against Jarvan, which might fare a little bit better than Kha'Zix against Nasus. That might be a little bit of a factor in their decision. However, I'm not really seeing too much why they would have done that. They do want a little bit of jungle pressure from Nasus. I think he might... No, I still think Jarvan would put out more jungle pressure than Nasus would, and perhaps they just want Nasus to be able to farm much more easily. It's generally safer in your own jungle to farm than it is in the top lane, where you have to deal with someone harassing you the entire time and the potential of a gank, whereas in your own jungle, generally you're going to have it warded. You'll be a little bit safer, so they might be going the safe route and trying to get Nasus even closer to that end game before some massive fights break out. But
yeah,
one thing I do have to say, though, is I think this might actually be the first time that I've made you laugh in a cast where I insulted myself instead of you.
I know, that's amazing, right? I'm so used to being the one that always gets teased whenever I get on air, and for once it's not happening to me. That's probably the only reason I'm really happy about it. But you know, one of the things I'm curious about, and it's probably not something I'll be able to figure out until we get out of the game and I'm able to actually ask the players. You know, it'll be interesting to see whether Kha'Zix picked Kha'Zix to go up against Nasus in the top lane, or whether he picked Kha'Zix thinking that Jarvan was going to the top lane. And I really think that he thought that it was essentially going to be Nasus up there. You know, they saw the Jarvan pick as well, and really those two roles are very interchangeable, but it's more typical to see a Jarvan in the jungle than it is to see, you know, not a Nasus top. That made sense. I'm just gonna go with that. Yeah. Totally made sense. As we get back into this game, we'll be returning to live here, so there might be a very slight hiccup in the footage here as we spam this button to make sure that we're live.
Don't really like Varus's build. Oh damn, he bought items. It's gonna make that joke where during the pause say you don't like someone's items, I've anything. But unfortunately he bought a little bit too quickly, so both of these teams going out to their respective jungles, although the odd thing I see right here is the fact that Thresh is going to his bot lane. I think he might be covering his try, basically saying the blue team looking like they're going for a little bit more of a defensive start in the early game, because Thresh is going to keep an eye on that bottom lane. They have put out a ward there, so actually a little bit of defensive from both teams, although red team, they might be looking to edge a little bit over towards the enemy's blue buff. But the blue team does know about this a little bit, and they are setting up for it.
Yeah, and Nasus is actually going to be caught out there. There we go. The Glitterland's going down, quite a bit of damage, as well as Nasus is forced to ghost out of here. He's going to try and get back in here, but it looks like the red team is going to do exactly what they did last game. They're not actually going to take the blue buff. Instead, they're going to go ahead and return to their own jungle. Now, you said something earlier about not liking Varus' starting build just because he had no items, but I legitimately don't like Varus' starting build. He decided to start with boots and 3 potions, which isn't bad, but we've really seen the standard after the movement speed buff was given to all champions sort of become this longsword pots or Doran's blade like we're seeing coming out on Caitlyn. And considering her long range, it's going to give them so much poke in the early game between Caitlyn and Lulu that it's just going to be unbelievable. So I really, really don't like this potion start on Varus, even though he is going for those golems right now, so he's going to be poked down very easily, and it's probably going to need those extra potions. It's just not going to give him the ability to keep up with Caitlyn and Lulu, even if they do manage an early level 2.
That's very true. So, Varus, it looks like he's gotten to lane. He might be... Yeah, he's gotten all that CS. There's no real worry about that. But they have taken golems, which is going to give him a level advantage, which is something that might benefit him quite a bit. Although, as you said before, he did go with the boot start, and especially, I think, if you're going for golems, you want to start with that longsword and 2 pots. So you'll still have the sustain, and you'll be able to make a little bit more of that level 2 advantage.
And we can see Perfect Body going in here and getting a lot of damage down onto top 3 controller GG. You know, Jarvan not doing the best in this matchup. The long-range poke that Kha'Zix is able to put out has been really devastating, especially with those void spikes going down onto him. So he's going to have to play this very carefully right now. Kha'Zix having all that poke over him, and we can see down in the bot lane, despite this early level 2 that they've managed to get onto Caitlyn and Lulu, that they're still losing out in this poke war, and Varus is just chugging down potions like there's no tomorrow. Kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier, that level advantage not making up for the poke that they had to endure and the damage coming out from that golem.
I have to agree with you there, and in the top lane, one thing I would like to note is the fact that I really like Perfect Body's strategy going right into the top lane. He's playing Kha'Zix, who has quite a bit of level 2 pressure, especially when you're in a long lane like the top lane. Basically, it's going to take a lot longer to get back behind the safety of your towers, so what he basically did, he started off the lane pushing so that he could get level 2 just a little bit earlier.
Here comes Hecarim, the flash immediately coming out from Thresh, as well as the knockback, but it may not be enough. The exhaust going down onto Lulu, but they're still able to manage to pick up first blood. But now Varus in a bit of a pickle here. He's taking a lot of damage despite Nasus coming up, the Glitter Lance coming out, and there is a double kill for Hecarim. Excellent, excellent gank there by Hecarim. That whimsy into Hecarim's charge is absolutely devastating.
Yeah, I don't think it was really the best idea for Varus to go into the back line and kill Caitlyn. He did get the kill out of it, however, they gave 2 kills to Hecarim, who is a champ that he's going to scale pretty well off those kills. We're going to see him get some early tankiness, which helps him tower dive early, which helps the rest of his team get the early lead that we know that they want. They want to shut down the enemy team, make sure that they don't get to the late game, and Hecarim getting 2 kills, tankier, more tower diving, more invading, it's really going to help him out a lot with that. So perhaps Varus not really weighing all of the possibilities there and making an all-around bad decision on the part to try to get back with the Caitlyn kill. He does have 1 kill, however, I really don't think it's going to make that big of a difference, as Caitlyn still has the Vamp Scepter. They both got a Vamp Scepter when they back.
Coming into mid lane, that Wither going down. Hecarim coming up for the counter gank, the forced flash coming out on both Orianna and Ryze. Hecarim just an absolute terror at this point. Even with only 2 kills under his belt, he's able to come in and really assert his dominance, even though he only has that Hunter's Machete right now.
Yeah, imagine that. I imagine that when he goes back, he's going to probably end up getting a Spirit Stone, helping him sustain through the jungle, and that's going to go up into the Blessing of the Lizard Elder, I believe, which is going to give him some of the extra 2 damage on his auto attacks, as well as quite a bit of early game health, which once again helps him with tower diving. So we'll have to see what he decides to pick up when he does go back. And in the bot lane, we can see the farm difference is basically the same. Obviously, 1 kill on Varus, however, 2 assists on Caitlyn, so that kind of balances each other out. And as I was saying earlier, they both got a Vamp Scepter. However, Caitlyn still has that Doran's Blade that she started with, whereas Varus has the boots, so she's going to be doing more damage than Varus, even though he's going to have a little bit more movement speed.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm concerned about is the fact that Thresh isn't able to pick up a lot of these souls, whether or not he just doesn't want to use his lantern or isn't able to go in and get them for being zoned out and poked to death. He's not picking up these souls, so he's not getting the tankiness he needs. He's not getting that extra AP that he's going to need to make his box as effective as it could be. And really, this is all boiling down to a poke war between the 2 teams in bot lane. Varus has managed to go back and kind of compensate for his early game buy. You know, he's got a Vamp Scepter now, but Caitlyn has a Doran's Blade on him, which is just going to enable her to poke harder. The nice thing is that Varus has done a good job of landing his skill shots, and in the mid lane we have Kha'Zix going in. He's just going to be able to take him right out, a nice flash over the wall. Will keep him out of harm's reach potentially as Nasus tries to engage on him and is then scared off by the void spikes coming out from him. Unfortunately, Nasus not being level 6 yet, not having the ability to go in with all that tankiness, so he will be forced to back off.
I have to say I really like that tower dive, and as we said before, the red team, they've kind of been known in that first game to get some early aggression down, but in the bot lane a hook lands, not too much to come out of that, but probably not the best hook, as he's basically pulling Caitlyn closer to him. As soon as she gets out of the hook, there's a possibility that she might have been able to pick up the kill on that. But actually, ooh, Hecarim stealing the blue buff away from the blue team. This is huge, and as we said before, he's gotten the spirit of the Lizard Elder Lizard, and it really helps him with that invade, and he's, like I said before, able to invade. He's able to shut down the blue team before they get to the late game, and it's really, really strong play by the red team.
Yeah, and we're about to see an engagement on top. Jarvan and Nasus scaring off this Hecarim. A few pings coming in out, but nothing else going to result from that gank and counter gank. Now, down in the bot lane, we can see Thresh not worried about these souls at all, and I'm really concerned about how this is going to affect his late game. I'm actually curious to see how many souls he's managed to pick up. I only see 11 on him right now at 8 minutes into the game. That's pretty rough, and we see Lulu getting poked down here fairly hard. She's down just a little bit above half health, and Caitlyn is just going to go back to clearing out these waves and trying to push them into tower as hard as she can. And we're kind of seeing the result from that in Varus' farm right now. So he's about 10 farm behind, and it looks like Hecarim is actually going to come in here, be it to steal the race or no, to steal the red buff now. So he goes in onto this Nasus. He's just going to come over here and start wailing on this. He's going to manage to take it, but Orianna here to help defend despite that Root Prism going down, and now getting down very low. That will easily be a pickup for Orianna. So not only losing that red buff, but losing Ryze's life in as well.
I'm really wondering what Ryze was trying to do there. He says, alright, I can get a little bit of extra damage on Orianna. It'll help me out in lane a little bit. But the entire time, he knew that Hecarim was busy taking his own team's red buff, so he knew the general vicinity where Hecarim was, so I'm not sure why he didn't expect Hecarim to jump in, CC him, and help Orianna get the kill onto that. So it's a very odd play by Ryze, and it really did not benefit him in the slightest. And now in the bot lane, as we said before, Caitlyn is pushing really hard onto the tower. Really good for her, because at various points, if Varus stands out to get farm, he's going to be in range of Caitlyn to take
Ignite is
poke.
down on Kha'Zix. He's going to pop his ultimate to go invisible. Now the jump away. So he uses the second proc of that to go invisible, and now he is going to... There's the Cataclysm coming out from Jarvan, and Kha'Zix not going to be enough to save him with those Void Spikes and the lifesteal from that. He will go ahead and fall to that Jarvan, who is now 1-0-0, 64 farm to 76 in that top lane.
Alright, we're also seeing a little bit of a build difference in terms of Ryze and Orianna. The big thing is that I like to point out is that Orianna got a Chalice of Harmony, and the reason that most people playing Ryze do not get Chalice of Harmony, even though it gives him quite a bit of mana regen, and the main reason for that is that the mana is mana regen and not flat out mana, so it's not going to help him in terms of his passive, which gives him more tankiness for the amount of... I believe it gives him tankiness for the amount of mana it gives. I know for a fact that... yeah, it does. His abilities... No, it scales his abilities with maximum mana. Alright, there we go.
Azaraki. And the ultimate coming out from Orianna, followed by an auto attack. A flash Q will manage to net that kill for her onto Ryze. And now Hecarim coming in for the straight up tower dive. The ultimate coming out from Vars. But unfortunately, this Thresh very squishy from not being able to pick up these souls. Caitlyn is trapped here in that ultimate. She'll be forced to use that 90 caliber net to go away, but Orianna is in here, and now a world of trouble. The ultimate coming out from Lulu, and both of them will fall. Hecarim managing to make it out of here just barely by an excellent ultimate on the part of Lulu, who still has her heal intact.
That was a great tower dive on the red team. They basically used both Hecarim and Orianna to their fullest potential. Obviously, Orianna placing Command Protect on Hecarim, speeding him up as well as doing burst damage as soon as he got into the fight. I believe she sped him up, I'm not entirely sure, but basically when you keep the ball on someone, any abilities you use are basically on them. So she used Command Dissonance, which not only does damage to anyone who's around him, but in the top lane of Cataclysm.
Going out from Jarvan, he will flash to go under this turret and pick up yet another kill on Kha'Zix, who's really starting to lose his edge, and now Hecarim in here on Ryze. Ryze gonna pop his ultimate, try and get the damage down. The ultimate coming out from Caitlyn, nearly getting him down. That Q from Orianna, not quite enough to take him out.
I have to say the red team is doing a very good job setting up some of these baits, like that trap for Ryze, basically saying Hecarim's sitting over there with low health. Ryze knows he wants to get maybe not the kill, but do as much damage as possible, but in the process he's taking a lot of damage from Orianna and didn't really expect Caitlyn to be there ready with an ultimate to try to finish him off. Unfortunately, the kill not coming down on him. However, like I said, the blue team has been playing into a lot of these traps. As we said before, when Hecarim took the red buff off from the blue team, Ryze was there, he was getting baited by Orianna, and he ended up dying from that, and now he's 0-3 while Orianna's 3-0. Twice the amount of farm that Ryze has. I have to say they've done an effective job at shutting him down early.
And now Hecarim coming in for the tower dive onto Jarvan, the ultimate coming out from Lulu just to make sure that he doesn't take too much damage there. An excellent response to the fact that Kha'Zix was having a bit of a hard time, but now it looks like Nass is going to get chunked, forced to pop his ultimate, but it may not be good enough, as it looks like they are going to pick up the kill. Kha'Zix tanking that tower a little bit, but all in all in good health, and they're going to be able to burst down this tower now and take a commanding lead in the map control coming out from them.
And this is going to be the second tower for the blue team. The red team, second tower down for the blue team, I have to say. That's always a phrase that I've never quite gotten the hang of, because you could say the red team has taken 2 towers, or the blue team has lost 2 towers, but you really have to be careful with the wording, otherwise it gets sort of mushy where, you know, the blue team, 2 towers down for the blue team. It could be either they push 2 towers down, or 2 towers are down for them, but it looks like the 2 members of the blue team might get caught out.
Speed up, the Varus ulti coming out, the flash coming out from Kha'Zix to get as much distance as possible, but it looks like the nice shield coming out. Kha'Zix in a lot of pain here as he walks through that box, and poor Lulu up here, just sitting up here doing whatever she wants. The Wither will go down and the Caitlyn ultimate coming out, but they will not manage to net any kills onto the red team right now. There's a huge discrepancy in gold and map control right now on the part of the blue team. You know, they're just not able to keep up with the map pressure. They're not able to keep up with the damage that the red team is putting out. Despite the fact that Jarvan is really the only person ahead on their team, I don't think he's going to be able to carry this game. They really have to turtle this out into the late game to make any kind of effective plays right now, because we can see that Nasus, despite having that Sheen, despite having that Spirit Stone, he's not very tanky right now. He's having a lot of problems putting out any kind of damage. And I'm actually curious to see what the farm on his Q is, so I'm going to go ahead and check that out right now. Looks like he has 81 farm rather on his Q, so not too bad, but not quite where he wants to be for this point in the game.
Yeah, it's definitely not good for Nasus to have such a low amount of farm at that point, and even looking at Hecarim, the amount of souls he has, about 15, not really that much, considering we're 15 minutes into the game. That's about a soul a minute. Definitely not very good, as we know there's an engagement in the mid lane.
And yeah, we have Jarvan coming in here with that flag combo, but nothing really going to happen from that. Now, I'm wondering how much this guy actually plays Thresh. You know, souls are a very important part of his kit. He needs them not only for the armor, but the AP is really nice too, especially with that ultimate. Has a lot of base damage, but the AP really helps it. And there's the Cataclysm going down onto Hecarim. He's just going to go ahead and zoom out of there without much of an issue. And there's the turnaround, the ultimate coming out from Orianna, followed up by the Fear. And there we go, there's one kill for them. Hecarim falling to Jarvan, but now the rest of the team is in here. Kha'Zix jumping and using those Void Spikes, and it looks like Orianna will pick up the double kill, and that will be the near ace. Only Varus getting out of there alive. Orianna actually tracking into the base to try and get a hold of him, and even Perfect Body coming up in here. A nice leap could go ahead and secure this kill, and here we go. Orianna going in for one more auto attack, and there is the ace, and Orianna getting really low here. Minion damage might actually manage to pick her up, but I think she's gonna get out of here, okay? And there we go, she's actually gonna die to Varus on the way out, and Kha'Zix just able to leap over that wall with no problem.
Really, a little bit of mistiming. Lulu was on her way. She was going to tank the tower just a little bit so that Orianna and Kha'Zix could get out, but you know, it's not really the end of the world for them. You know, Varus got another kill. He's 2 and 3, but they've been winning convincing team fights, and throughout that the first half of that team fight, the first 3 quarters of that team fight, Caitlyn wasn't even there. Caitlyn was off in the mid lane. She was farming up a little bit, and they won the team fight just with Orianna's combo, paired with Hecarim running in, using his Fear, doing a little bit of damage himself, and then Orianna basically able to clean up for a triple kill, I believe, during that fight, which is, you know, she's gotten not only a Haunting Guise, but a needlessly large rod on top of that, so she's doing a ton of magic damage. Let me see exactly how much AP she has. About 150 AP, 17 minutes into the game. That's quite a bit. Shockwave is doing about upwards of 400 damage, I believe. 300 damage.
Yeah, now in the bot lane we have Hecarim coming in, looking to originally pursue this, but deciding to back off. Thresh still not having really any souls to his name. You know, that AP is so helpful with his ultimate and could really be a credit to these fights, but he's building into GP10 right now. He has no real tankiness to him. You can see him picking up a health crystal as well as a cloth armor to try and combat that squishiness, but if he had been using that lantern to pick up souls in the early game, he wouldn't have to have that cloth armor because he'd be leaps and bounds ahead on armor in general. So really sad to see the kind of position that he's in right now, and he's actually going to get cornered out after trying to catch out this Lulu. He will use his box, but it's not going to be enough as Lulu actually picks up that kill. Now, we were talking a little bit about that prior engagement. Something to note there especially is that Jarvan decided to engage onto Hecarim, and Hecarim alone with that Cataclysm. Orianna was able to burst her ult, and even though that they had gone Hecarim very low, he essentially just engaged for his Fear, used his ultimate knowing that Kha'Zix and Caitlyn were very close behind, able to come in and essentially clean up. So an excellent play on his part, but now in the top lane we have Jarvan coming in. He's going to use that standard knock-up combo, and now the Cataclysm coming out. He's in a lot of pain right now, but here we go. Hecarim actually coming up in here and engaging. The jumps coming out, and there's the Orianna ulti. And ooh, unfortunate for Kha'Zix tanking that turret. A good flash on his part will manage to keep him alive.
One other thing I'd like to note that we didn't in the early game, or during picks and bans or anything like that, is another reason that the blue team really wanted to hold out until late game was the fact that they don't have a main tank. They have a bunch of tanky members. They have Jarvan, who's really tanky. They have Nasus, who gets tanky. But those are sort of bruiser-ish tanky. They do both damage and tank. There's not really a main tank, which really hurts them a little bit in the mid-game, and since they weren't able to get the early farms, since they weren't able to get some of the early items leading into mid-game, they're really far behind because their team doesn't really have much of a front line right now. As we see, the only tanky item for Nass is Chain Vest. The Spirit Stone obviously giving him a little bit of mana and health regen, but like I said in the previous game, it's not one of the team fight tankiness, which is something you need straight up health, armor, magic resist, something like that, because in a straight up burst AoE team fight, health regen isn't really going to help you at all. Another champ, Jarvan, the only thing he's really gotten in terms of tankiness, Giant's Belt and Ruby Crystal, he hasn't gone for anything. I would have actually expected to see a little bit more, maybe a Locket of the Iron Solari, although that's probably more towards a jungle Jarvan than anything else, because it does build off of, what is it, Hunter's Machete, so that's quite possibly a reason why.
Solari doesn't build off of Hunter's Machete, it builds off
Wait,
of
I was thinking,
Kindle Gem and Kindle Gem and Cloth Armor. But Locket of the Iron Solari wouldn't have been a bad idea in general, and I would even like to see dual Lockets coming out from the blue team to help damage all of the AoE damage coming out. Now, a nice hook down onto Lulu, but Hecarim's just going to use it as an opportunity to engage. The box is down, the fear has come out, and now Kazak's trying to come in here and do as much damage as possible. Nasus and Ryze both falling, and now Thresh in a world of pain as a double kill comes out from Kha'Zix, and now he chases on for Jarvan, who is going to manage to get taken out, but Hecarim falling in return, and Varus falling finally in the ace. Kha'Zix picking up a nice triple kill there.
They are going to be able to push the bot tower out of this, might even be able to get an inhibitor. 4 seconds until Nasus is up, but there's really not too much he can do. He's been supremely shut down. He's actually got the lowest farm in the entire game besides the supports, which is something you really never want to do as an Nasus.
That's so rough right now, and here we go. Ryze coming in for the flash engagement, getting down onto this Kha'Zix, who's just going to burst him down with the help of Orianna, and now this poor Nass is forced to run away. A huge chunk of his health being taken out, but it looks like Varus coming in here with Thresh to try and get some kills down. It's not going to be enough. Caitlyn will surely fall here. Varus managing to pick that up, and now Orianna just going for the disengage as Jarvan looks to try and catch anybody out that he possibly can. He's going to go for the combo, but unfortunately Kha'Zix is here, able to respond. He doesn't have any mana though. This could be huge and problematic for him. Thresh is picked up, and the leap away will manage to keep him alive into this nice play by Lulu. She still has, I have yet to see her use heal this game. Oh, this is so infuriating. I'm like, come on, you can get health back on people and they can go in for the engagement. It'll be great. But she's like, nah, I'm going to hang on to this. It's cool.
Yeah, now that the bottom inhibitor is down, that lane will start pushing on its own, giving them a lot of control. Basically, they can sit top, mid, start pushing those lanes out. And they'll know that the blue team can't really do too much about it. They're going to need to push the bot lane out really, really far if they ever want to take all 5 members out of the bot lane and say go for a mid or go for a Baron, which of the bot lane inhibitor is definitely one of the main objectives you want to take if you want to go for a Baron play and you're on either team actually. It's the farthest away, so if you say kill the top lane inhibitor, then they could be pushing out the top lane the entire time, and that'll keep them a little bit close to Baron, so that if there's anything that a fight breaks out at Baron, they can get there pretty quickly. Whereas if you have the bot lane inhibitor, if someone's all the way bot, unless they have a teleport or something along those lines, they're not going to get to Baron in time for a fight. So it's possible that we might be seeing Ryze start split pushing bot, but as we know, unless he uses his ultimate, he doesn't really have a lot of pushing power. So the blue team is really in a tough spot right now, and the red team, if they wanted to go for Baron, they really could. And if the entire blue team does decide to come and stop them, even if they win a fight, the bot lane will start pushing in their favor. And there's a big chance that they won't win the fight, because as we see, the red team is really far ahead, almost 20k gold ahead. They've been winning these team fights hands down.
Yeah, we can see the kind of damage coming out from those Void Spikes by Kha'Zix right there. He's kind of just able to come in and poke and take out huge chunks of health. coupled with Caitlyn's Piltover Peacemaker. So we need to see a really heavy focus on armor coming out from the red team in order for them to do much. You can see how brazen this guy is, just sitting there and tanking turret damage like it's no tomorrow. They just don't care. They know how far ahead they are. They know they've pretty much got this game in the bag. And Thresh coming in here for the pull. A nice pull onto Kha'Zix, but it won't be enough as he instantly gets melted. Hecarim coming in for the double kill, and there's a Locket coming out, followed by the Fear on Hecarim, and the flash coming out from Kha'Zix to get on to this Varus, who will manage to be body blocked from the Caitlyn ultimate by Nasus. Those home guard boots really going to be useful for trying to come in here and get down as much damage as they can. Now Nasus coming in here trying to stop this. Hecarim will get down very low. Hecarim will manage to fall, but Orianna picking up a kill in response to that on to Nasus, and now we can see them taking out that second Nexus turret, and oh, poor Varus here just instantly bursted down by Caitlyn and Orianna there, and now Lulu is just keeping them away and off and onto their fountain, and now you can see Kha'Zix just working on taking down this Nexus. So the GG's coming out, and that will be it for the blue team. What really went wrong for them there in that game?
It really went wrong, like I said, in the early game, where they really got baited into too many fights. They got tower dive. They did not play defensively enough, and that's really one of the key points I brought up at the beginning of the match for picks and bans, was the fact that red team, we know they're aggressive. We know that they like to and they can pull off these early tower dives, and they've done that this game as well. They've turned a ton of jungle invades. They've done a bunch of tower dives. They've gotten a lot of early kills, and it really just helped them snowball their own lead and shut down the blue team and make sure that they didn't hit the late game.